I'm going to start with a question that I have been thinking about. And I believe that all of us are quite aware of this word infrastructure, and I may have even used it earlier today. So I'm going to start with you, George. When you hear the word infrastructure, what comes to mind?
Hello, everyone. Firstly, I would introduce myself. So my name is George Badejo-Adegbenga. I'm a 6'2" tall black man. I'm wearing an Ankara trousers, sneakers, white shirt. Some would say I'm handsome. You can be the judge of that. But yeah, so that is me.
Oh, can you also include that you're wearing glasses?
And I'm wearing glasses and perhaps shaved or bald. It's one of the two. I don't think I bother shaving anymore. It just doesn't come. All right. So when the word infrastructure is mentioned, I think what comes to mind is more the tangible aspect, right? So we think about roads, electricity, bridges, but infrastructure is both tangible and intangible. Ultimately, it is the structure or the systems that keep things going. And I think most things, and when we dive into the conversation, you would find that it's more the intangible that actually keeps anything going. So that is what comes to mind. I think it's more the intangible and tangible that defines infrastructure.
Well, thank you for that. Alice, join the conversation.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Alice Dina. I am about 5'6", which is average for someone born in the 80s. I'm wearing a white jumpsuit, nice and light for the hot weather. I am one of the founders and directors of the Priory Preparatory School in Lagos. And I'm also the chair of Friends of Ireland here in Lagos. Yeah, so that's me. I've been living in Lagos about 20 years now.
You might want to explain your accent. And is hearing it, but doesn't visually see you.
Yes. So, well, I'm from Ireland. I moved here 20 years ago for love. And then I stayed because of love and also because it was exciting. And Lagos offered me a lot of opportunity. And I have been enjoying my time here since. I have also got a pair of glasses, but they're not on my face because I avoid wearing them unless I really have to, which is when I need to read things or put my PIN into a POS. So you want me to answer what infrastructure is to me? So infrastructure, I would agree with George, is tangible, it's intangible. It's systems. It's systems that I think when they're there, it's easier for a country to work in harmony. I think when a government builds infrastructure, when they put things in place that work, I think it's a vote of confidence in their own people. I think it's an investment in the people of that country. But when it doesn't exist, it's amazing how people can still find ways forward. And I think Nigerians in particular are excellent at finding ways forward and of building things, even though the infrastructure may be lacking. And it's that level of positivity and ingenuity and innovation that I enjoy about Nigeria. I do hope that they will continue to invest in the infrastructure here because the sky is the limit as to what you can do here. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Alice. And it's nice to know that you enjoy being in Nigeria.
Yes, very much.
And it's been good for you.
It has. It has been great for me. It has afforded me opportunities I wouldn't otherwise have been given.
Thank you. Mobolaji, please introduce yourself. And of course, the same question.
Hello? Hello? Okay, good. My name is Mobolaji Olambiwanu, and I am a 6'1" black man, bald head. I'm an inch shorter than my my predecessor. Like, I will not call myself handsome, but I have a bald head, and I have glasses as well. I am wearing a yellow linen shirt and some light blue pants, I would say, or trousers, as folks would say here. And I am wearing blue tennis shoes, Adidas tennis shoes, my favorite brand. That's it, Adidas, different pronunciation. Let's see. I'm trying to translate from my American English to my British English. Okay, infrastructure. So when I think about non-tangible infrastructure specifically, I think non-tangible infrastructure creates, in a sense, the pre-infrastructure for the infrastructure itself, for the real infrastructure, the tangible infrastructure to exist. And what I mean by, I forgot, I'm a filmmaker and a professor at Cal State LA in Los Angeles. I'm from Los Angeles. Okay, so infrastructure, the non-tangible infrastructure that's necessary in order to create the tangible infrastructure is really psychological. And I feel like people don't really put enough emphasis on that non-tangible infrastructure, in specific the psychological infrastructure that is required to go forward, to actually take those steps, take those actions. And so what I consider the non-tangible infrastructure is really coming from a loving environment, coming from a place where you're supported, where there's room and there's space for you to have ideas, right? You're not in survival mode all the time, right? And even if you are in survival mode, at the very least, you're in an environment where you're loved and supported, that survival mode is able to be mitigated in a sense by that. And so for me, non-tangible infrastructure is really all about psychology, because people don't take steps and can't make things tangible if they don't have the right psychological mindset, the right support, the right systems in place in order to achieve those goals and move forward. And so that's what I think about when I think about non-tangible infrastructure.
Well, thank you very much. We believe Eric is now available online. Just a bit of background about Eric. Eric was the first guest on the Thinking Reimagined Talk Concert. He should have been here with us physically. He loves coming to Nigeria. He will be coming back again, and he will become part of the Nigerian culture. He actually has been given a series of Nigerian names: Ibrahim, Tokumbo, what's the other one? Chinedu. So during his last trip, he was bestowed quite a few Nigerian names from just about every ethnic group. And I have a feeling Eric is going to get some more. So Eric, welcome. And thank you for joining us. We miss you here in Nigeria, but we're glad that you can join virtually. So would you please introduce yourself, because we do have some visually impaired people in the audience. Give them an idea who you are physically. And also, if you can answer the question on what infrastructure means for you.
So when I hear the word infrastructure, particularly beyond the physical, it's very close to me. Not only as I think of my travels to Nigeria a little over 9 months ago, but even more recently in my work, infrastructure beyond the physical ultimately is the trust and operating layer that makes everything actually work when pressure hits. It is coordination, accountability, incentives, reliability, and proof. Because the roads, wires, and buildings do not mean much if the system around them cannot hold integrity. So to me, infrastructure is not just what is built, it is what makes people, capital, systems able to function at scale without everything breaking the second it gets stressed. Infrastructure in many ways could just be people, the team, the community, the family that is foundational to all the physical things that are built up on top of it. So that's what it really means to me beyond the physical.
I can tell you that Eric is African American. He is wearing black top from what I can see, and he's got curly hair. Does that help to give you some context? Excellent. Thank you. All right. So what has come across from this discussion so far, or from that question, is that infrastructure is about systems. Infrastructure is about people. Infrastructure is about the system that we create that has integrity and trust, that allows people to endure and to move through whatever is available to them, and that the institutions that we create along with that infrastructure is very critical to the sustainability of the endeavors that we take on. Would that be a simple synthesis of what has been stated so far? Excellent. All right. So the other question I wanted to ask you, because we always try to bring this into a human space, because at the end of the day, even if we talk about infrastructure, it's people. It's driven by people. So my question for you, and I'm going to start with Alice, if you don't mind. My question for you, Alice, is very simple one. From your experience, what have you had to build or protect to sustain your personal capacity over time?
Okay, so I think I've had to, I guess, in order to preserve my personal life and space, I've had to build resilience and become a lot more receptive to feedback. Because if you don't learn to listen, if you don't learn to take on feedback, you don't develop, you don't grow, you don't progress. You're just constantly on the back foot. But in order to take on feedback, you also do need to become stronger in your mindset and to understand that when people say things, it doesn't have to be taken personally. But you could take it for personal and professional growth, which is what I try to do now. And it really, it's been a nice journey in that way, because when you're younger, you have to fight to be heard, to be seen. And especially, I suppose, if you're a woman, it's sometimes people make judgments about you much more quickly than they would about men. And I think it has, Nigeria being Nigeria, and because there's so much adversity here and things don't always go the way that you want, and there are, as we've experienced today, glitches and things like that, it forces you to become adaptable, to be flexible, to try and find other ways. And so I've had to build that, but I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to build it. And what have I had to protect? I think when I say I've been in Nigeria for 20 years, really I've been in Lagos. I haven't been in Nigeria, I've been in Lagos. And being in Lagos, very vibrant city. Nigerians are very socially productive people. Lots of parties, lots of weddings, there's just always something going on here. And I think I've had to choose very carefully my social interaction, because at the end of the day, it will determine whether you preserve your peace, the peace in your mind, the peace in your heart, and it will determine who shares your personal space with you at home. Who do you welcome into your home? Who adds value to your life in a way that is not monetary? And I think protecting that and being able to set that example for my children has been very important. And protecting, so my husband is also my business partner. And to preserve peace in our home, we're not allowed to talk about work like in the evening. We can talk about it in the morning when the kids have left for school. We can talk, but weekends and evenings are sacred in the house. Because otherwise we might have a difference of opinion and then have an argument and then the whole weekend is ruined. So yeah, that's it.
Excuse me. I certainly understand that and and relate wholeheartedly, as I'm sure many people can. Mobolaji, do you want to use this mic?
Can you ask the question one more time?
So the question, as I had framed it, was what have you had to build? What have you had to build or protect to sustain your personal capacity over time? And essentially what I am doing is I'm playing with the word infrastructure, because actually, if you think about infrastructure as intangible and tangible, you are infrastructure. There's an infrastructure of who you are that is being presented. So how are you protecting your infrastructure? How does it make it an easier question now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my infrastructure is protected. I mean, as I mentioned in my answer to the previous question, I think it's about maintaining that psychological space. So for me, that involves trying to meditate daily. I don't always accomplish that. It involves trying to exercise daily. And while those things seem unrelated to productivity, they actually are the things that make me most productive, I find. When I'm moving, when I'm meditating, when I'm thinking, or creating the space to think about what's necessary and what I need to do, that becomes part of a structure that really works. My life tends not to work if I don't have appropriate structures. And so I've learned that, right? And there also has to be, for me, the space to evaluate what I've gone through for that particular day, and think about and plan for the next day as well. So for me, that is the importance lies in creating and finding space, those windows, those opportunities, those moments to look within, whether through meditation, through exercise. Yeah, either one of those things. Yes.
Thank you. Eric, would you like to take on that question, please?
So what I would say, to create those boundaries, that is, around the infrastructure that gives us that capacity to operate personally, mentally, physically, spiritually. These are things I have to build and protect every day, whether it is meditation, if it's prayer, community, boundaries, solitude, exercise. Sometimes, I live in Battersea in the South Bank of London. Sometimes it's a walk in the park, right? I need those things to sustain my capacity. They are not extras for me. They are part of what keeps me steady, what keeps me clear and able to carry what I'm called to carry. It's as foundational and essential to my operating capacity as being able to breathe, because it gives me that clarity of mind. And the guarding of your mind in this space is so essential to how we grow and evolve and help our teams grow and evolve. So that's how I would say that's what I say was very necessary for me.
Thank you. And George?
Hello. All right. So I think, interestingly, my response cuts across what everyone, Mobolaji, Eric, Alice, has shared, which is quite interesting, and that speaks a lot, right? However, I think me as an infrastructure and one of the infrastructure behind our businesses, protecting myself goes back to why I do what I do, right? And for me, I do what I do because of my family, right? So for every venture I get into, and perhaps this is the reason why I'm involved in a lot of stuff, I will always ask myself, what is the worst thing that can happen that would affect my family? And if it appears that this decision is going to put them in harm's way or affect their comfortability, then I will not do it. However, as I've found, most of the time when I ask that question, they're always safe, and then I risk it all. And that's the reason why I'm involved in everything. But I know for sure that as long as my family is safe, I can do anything. Right, and that is what protects me and keeps me going, and I believe would get our businesses to where we want it to be.
Well, thank you, everyone. What has come through, and hopefully everyone has captured this from the contributors, is the sense of discipline, the sense of boundaries, and having some barriers, guardrails that protect you psychologically. The sense of having some governance in terms of how you operate within yourselves and within your companies and with your families. That definitely has come through. And I don't think that people usually think of themselves as infrastructure, which is why I put that question out there, because I was curious to see how people see themselves. Are you part of the system, or are you looking into the system? And the reality is that infrastructure is part of who we are, and we are part of it. And so the relationship that we have with ourselves and with the larger physical infrastructure and the governance and the systems that we create is very critical, I would say. And it really has come across in the comments that you have shared. And if I will say this, trust comes through very loudly. The sense of trust in yourselves is very important to all of you that have spoken today. Let's dive into some other questions that have come up. And I want to start with the idea of being able to sustain the infrastructure as it exists. And I'm talking about the internal and the physical, particularly the physical infrastructure, because the longevity of the infrastructure really is important. Otherwise, it will collapse, right? So how do we continue to sustain this? What are some of the things that we believe individually that are necessary to sustain infrastructure? Any one of you, it's really open.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Okay, so I'm going to look at this from our organization standpoint. When we started MIM Finance with a few other execs, one of the first things that was important to me is how do we create a business with a unique culture, right? And we then decided that we're going to come up with a set of values, which is our corporate values. We have 5 of them. One team, be proud, be trusted, can do, will do, treating customers fairly. Those are the 5 core values. And for us, we believed strongly that that is the only differentiator that cannot be imitated just easily. As a finance firm, we all sell money, right? We're the same as Rent Money, Fair Money, Zenith, whichever bank. It's the same cash, right? Interest rate cannot differentiate you because anyone can compete and change that. So the culture of the organization, driven by set values, are important. And that is what would keep the business going beyond the founding fathers and mothers of the business. So for us, that was very, very important. And I don't believe that we could have got to where we got to today without agreeing those values and trying to instill them. And don't get me wrong, setting cultures is one of the most challenging things. We're not even there yet, right? But we reaffirm it across our boardrooms. You see all the values. Sometimes I walk into rooms and I hear people saying to each other, well, that's not can do, will do, is it? Right? It would take time, but you need those infrastructure, right? To kind of sustain your business and keep your business going with or without you.
Thank you. Alice, I have a question very specific for you as an educationist. And this is the question. What must the next generation understand about carrying systems forward that we may not have fully prepared them for? In other words, how are we preparing the next generation?
It's a really interesting question right now, because when you speak to parents who are the greatest stakeholders that we would have, there are groups of parents who are extremely concerned that we're not doing enough with tech with the kids. You should be embracing AI, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And I get it, I understand. I understand where it's coming from. However, if you go to those things too early, because anyone who uses even just simply ChatGPT, it depends what you put into it as to what you get out of it. Now, if you haven't developed your critical thinking skills, then AI is not a tool, it's a crutch. And it masks the things that you have not yet learned. And it robs you of the opportunity to develop skills that you need and that society needs in order to evolve, right? So we need to be very, very careful as to how and when and why we introduce technology to children. My school is a primary school, so the children are age 4 to 11. They are way too young for social media. And so exposing them to that without giving them the education is just really dangerous. You're essentially inviting strangers into their lives that they have to deal with on a daily basis. But yet, maybe you haven't taught them about what they're being exposed to. Maybe like simple things like sex education. People run away from it, parents run away from it. It's uncomfortable, I get it. If you don't teach them, who's going to teach them? It's not like they're not going to find out. So I think that, it comes back to what I said originally as well, which is that, you have to be you have to listen. You have to listen to the world around you. You have to listen to the children themselves and to what they are inspired by. Because when you all spoke and you spoke about your infrastructure and what you need to protect, it also comes down to you and your character and what makes you happy. Because the truth is that if you enjoy what you do, you're just better at it. And we need to get the younger generations to believe in themselves and to realize what their own skills are and stop trying to push them into boxes that their parents think that they belong in. You know, it's a great world in some ways because there are endless types of jobs now that we didn't even know about, okay, 10 years ago even. But prepping them for that and making sure, like if you look to the political sphere right now, there's a serious lack of empathy in humanity. And that was one of the things we noticed during COVID. When we all went to screens, there was a dearth of contact and love and compassion and the kids really suffered. They really suffered because of that. And I would hope to see us not lose our critical thinking skills just because we think we have to move with AI. I mean, the tech companies are dictating everything. We don't have to do that. And there are many schools now across the world where they're ditching computers and tablets all over the place just to get back to the fundamentals so that then they can build upon it. You know, it's not a race. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Thank you for that. And it really dovetailed very nicely on George's sense of values, having those values as foundation. And now you're talking about the value of the human spirit, the human being, empathy. I absolutely agree with you. Empathy, compassion, and the sense of being and what's important. I've always said this, and it's part of the series I've been doing for the last 6 weeks or 7 weeks on LinkedIn, is looking at what is the role as human beings we're playing in terms of the implementation of infrastructure, of technology, AI, and all of that that's coming forth, because we have to understand and be responsible for it. So there's a sense of responsibility that comes into play. There's a sense of governance that comes into play. There's a sense of recognizing that we must be aware of the biases that come into play as well. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it is filtering and becoming very embedded in the larger infrastructure of life. But is there a way for us to manage it? Because otherwise we will end up with human beings that have lost some of the basic human qualities and values that we as people who are creating these structures espouse. Yeah. Eric, for somebody who spends a lot of time creating systems, and I know that you haven't, we missed the first segment and we're coming back to it, where people will truly understand that you're embedded and immersed in this technology. It's what you live and breathe every day. My question for you is, how do we underestimate the limits of human beings' limits when we're creating these systems? And what can we do to keep that in mind as we create? The question,
from what I could gather from what you said, Dr. Ama, I think when you look beyond the core of what infrastructure is, I think it also really reflects how we value continuity, because continuity is such a it's a core piece of, it shows whether people are only thinking about immediate use or they're thinking about what must endure for the people that follow, the next generation. So real infrastructure is not something you install and walk away from. It requires stewardship. shared responsibility and the humility to understand that what serves the public must be cared for continuously. And I think a lot of the decision making around this lives in these invisible agreements between people. It is in whether systems are fair, whether leadership is competent, whether the communities that are served also feel a degree of ownership, and whether institutions can be trusted to do what they say they will do. And that is why so much of infrastructure is never only about money or construction. It is not about the quality of your buildings or the sophistication of your software. You know, it is about character. It is about culture, and whether the people connected to that system have the discipline to protect it once, you know, the ribbon cutting is over. So yeah, that was hopefully I was able to articulate answer. I apologize if I missed the mark because of the audio issues.
No, you didn't. You never missed the mark. But what you spoke about is very important. It's about the stewardship. It's about what we, the people, do with that infrastructure that we have created. So that endurance, that longevity of infrastructure, however we position it, as you said very rightly, is beyond the ribbon cutting. That is just the start of the implementation, is what goes on beyond that. So you did not miss the mark. You got it, as always. Thank you, Eric. I'm going to ask this question of Mobolaji, and I did want to bring the audience. Mobolaji, can I bring the audience in first? Sure. And then I'll come back to you. One of the beautiful things about this setting is that we get the audience to participate. Does anyone have comments, question, input that they need to put through to enrich today's discussion?
So my name is Dapo Doli. I work for Ogun State Government. I head an agency that deals with partnership working with the governments. And in my experience, and can I just say I've loved the perspective given by the audience, by the panel, when it comes to infrastructure. So my approach to infrastructure partly has to do with my job, what I do day to day. I head an agency that's tasked with bringing investments and into Ogun State, and a lot of that is infrastructure. So in my experience, infrastructure is extremely contextual and relative. So it really depends on the background, what you're seeking to deploy, and what you want to achieve. So for me, when I'm looking at infrastructure, I'm looking at what government wants to do for the populace. And so that's for the people of Ogun State and Nigeria. So therefore, that means simplifying, adding value, making things easier for the residents who live, work, and play in Ogun State. So therefore, infrastructure means improving their lives with the right kind and level of, let's look at transport, roads, bridges, seaports, airports, rail systems. So people can traverse the corridors and the length and breadth of that state to do business, to visit family, to take their children to school. So that's adding value. That's transport. Looking at power systems, be it solar, alternative to your normal electricity, to ensure that they can power their homes, live comfortably, and use whatever electrical and non-electrical systems that power allows them to do. In terms of food security, again, it's an agrarian state where there are many, many farmers. And of course, we do need to eat and drink. So therefore, infrastructure systems that would allow people to have their food move from the farms to the markets to their table to ensure they're fed, they can trade, and things like that. So I won't go too much more into this, but just to say that infrastructure is contextual and it's relative. So that takes nothing away from the personal infrastructure, societal infrastructure, political mechanisms that allow people to function when it comes to delivering for the people, and of course, and so forth. The last thing I will say is that infrastructure can be quite complex. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's the key word. Infrastructure is very complex, and the longevity of infrastructure really relies on all people to be involved in the maintenance, the endurance of those systems that we put in place. We're going to see if there's anyone else who has a comment or question that they would. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jesu Lulua. I'm 5 feet something. I'm wearing gold earrings, gold jewelry. I'm wearing a cream pant and a blue top. I have wig on. What else? I'm a beautiful young lady. So I just wanted to say that I think it's important to note that personal infrastructure is important as a person, because if I don't come to the cognizance of that, then I won't be able to treat my physical infrastructure well. So here's what I'm saying: if I don't take care of myself properly, I may not take care of what is around me properly. So if I don't take care of my space in my home well, I won't use the infrastructure outside properly because I don't take it seriously. So noting first that I am an infrastructure would give me an insight of how to undo what is around me and what is outside, on the outside. It's very important to note. The other thing I wanted to note is that we shouldn't fall into the extreme of caring for ourselves and not caring for the physical infrastructure around us. And we can also fall to the extreme of caring for the physical infrastructure and not caring for ourselves. So there must be a balance in what we do and how we do it. I must know that I am an infrastructure. I need to take care of myself, the things in my space, but I also have to take care of the physical infrastructure and the things that are happening around me so that it brings a balance to what we're talking about. Thank you.
First, I think I should say thank you to everyone who has taken time to describe themselves, because I think basically you're describing yourself because of me and maybe any other visually impaired person who might be watching. So, having said that, when we talk infrastructure, I think it was Mr. George that started by saying there's the tangible and the intangible. And when we have conversations around infrastructure, I tend to bring it to the perspective of persons with disability because I'm visually impaired. And I like to, every chance I get, advocate for total inclusion. And I think we should commend Dr. Amma because this is really commendable. Thank you so much. Now, intangible infrastructure or tangible infrastructure, let me start from the intangible infrastructure. I like to look at it from the mindset perspective that every time we set out to build an infrastructure, we're person-centered. And once we're person-centered, it means that we must expand our demography such that we're not capturing only a crop of people and marginalize other sets of people. So I don't know how many of these kind of programs that persons with disability get to attend, So this is a call to action that when we're designing infrastructures, when we're designing systems, persons with disability must have a seat at the table such that you're not only designing for us, but you're also designing with us, because there's a line we use that nothing for us without us. Because I have the lived experience, I'm able to tell you how to design a system, how to design an infrastructure such that I can optimally use it. So as we advance the conversation around infrastructure, I think it's important that inclusion is woven into the fabric of this conversation such that nobody is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for speaking to the subject, because the biases that exist do not make some of this that's being created inclusive. And I'm very much for that. May I personally just state that he just got married and he seated with his wife. He can't describe himself because he can't tell you, but you can see him. So now you see the difference. And I do strongly advocate for the inclusion of all. Don't put up buildings without thinking about those that are visually impaired or hearing impaired or whatever it might be. And we consistently do that. So I speak to all in the infrastructure space, technology space especially, and otherwise. We must advocate and we must be inclusive. And please, anyone is invited, whether it's a physical, visual, whatever the difference is, please come and join us, and we will always make sure that it is an inclusive space. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's heartfelt, and I believe everyone understood that. Thank you.
I want to add to the inclusion element of things as well, in saying that inclusion is not about just making the space for other people. I think it's also about improving the quality of what it is you're building as well. So I don't want inclusion to be misinterpreted as, at least in my experience, I've found that when I've broadened my perspective and I've been inclusive, the thing that I'm building, the thing that I'm creating is more, stands the test of time better and is more capable of I guess, more structurally sound, because it's something that includes different perspectives. And so I think oftentimes people misinterpret the idea of inclusion as being nice to another group of people who don't, look exactly the same as you, but it's much more than that. I think it makes your structure more sound and more capable of withstanding the test of time ultimately.
Thank you. There was a gentleman, I don't know who has the mic, the gentleman in black with the black spectacles also wanted to.
My name's Otumba Charles Farimoyo. I'm wearing, I'm an African man, black, Nigerian. I'm wearing a dark spectacle and kaftan, black with white stripes. I'm about 5'7" height, and I'm a businessman. When talking about infrastructure, I think, like Mr. Oduwole said, from the government point of view, I think we lack very, very drastically a very Nigerian way of domesticating such infrastructure. We like to just put up infrastructure as gigantic and like a very beautiful edifice. But the functional part of it, we tend to forget about people who are Nigerians who are going to use it. We might not be as sophisticated as the Americans or the British, but at the end of the day, we are the owners of the infrastructure, and it should be customized and domesticated to our own way of using it. And a lot of people or government forget that. This morning, I read a message on my WhatsApp that the coastal road that had just been built, some people have actually gone to steal the wire mesh dividing the medians. And I was like, why should that even happen? If a government knows the type of people you have to customize and domesticate the infrastructure. And I'll give an example. All the bridges in Lagos with aluminum rails, those rails have been stolen. But I've never seen any thief go to Lekki Ikoyi Bridge to steal the concrete railings. So why don't we keep at least an attention to domesticate the big infrastructure that is costing us billions of dollars, so that our own people can make use of it and they do not destroy it. So, and it goes back to non-physical infrastructure as well. I see a lot of us we pay attention to the outward looks, and the inwards is not being well prepared in terms of our own personal infrastructure in our private lives. So I believe that we need to develop, and when I mean develop, I mean totally 360 degrees, develop ourselves privately, our own personal infrastructure, make it work for us, not only for us, for our families, and for people around us. A lot of us depend on our maid servants or house helps. I've seen people in Rolls Royces in their car, but they still need to get drivers to drive those Rolls Royces, and they look like rags. So your personal infrastructure should blend very well to give you a good feeling so that you can reflect what you have privately and help us develop the physical infrastructure for everybody to enjoy. So those are just my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just, I'd like to come back to the inclusion point, because in education, it's a really, really important part of running a school is that you are inclusive, that you are catering for all the students who have been put in your care. And so you have a system of differentiation where it's not one size fits all. And I agree with you that everybody who is building something needs to think about including everybody who needs to access that. And it comes down to there's something that kind of hasn't been mentioned, but it's been implied the whole way through, which is communication. If you don't communicate with people, you can't carry them along. And I do feel like the standard of education within this country for the vast majority of people is quite low. And so communication breaks down regularly. So even when you mention the coastal road, I feel like it was such a sudden decision for most of us. We couldn't get on board with it because we didn't know what it was for. All we knew was that things were being demolished, and we didn't know what it was for. And there were rumors of this and that. And now that it's there, it's fantastic. And that's great. But we need to carry along people in our infrastructure by communicating. And the second thing is that there has to be accountability. And I'm not talking about, because I see it within my own organization. You know, there's often this hiding what you're not able to do yet because you don't want to be blamed. You don't want to be the person that people point the finger at. That is not accountability. Accountability is when you realize that you need help. And you ask for help. And you realize that if you don't get the information and the skills that you need, you will fail. And the fact that people with disabilities are not included means that the people who built those things failed. They failed those people. For me as a teacher, if all the children in my school don't make progress, we failed. And we need to ask ourselves why. And then we need to change what's not working so that it does work. And I think really that is, for me, what building infrastructure is really about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Tessa, did you have your hand up?
My name is Tessa. I'm 173. I don't do feet because I'm from the Netherlands. I've also been in Nigeria for 20 years. I do follow Dr. Ama's style in Ankara a little bit. I'm loving this event. I'm really, really loving it. I'm abandoning my children so I can stay a bit longer. And the discussion is very good. But when it came about infrastructure, having been in Nigeria for 20 years, I immediately thought of NEPA and everything tangible. And then we went into the the non-tangible, and I was thinking to myself, for me, that it's networks, and it takes a village. And then George was talking about the values of his company. In my company, we say the Spider-Man one, with great power comes great responsibility. And then looping all this in, what has been said so far, I want to go back to what Alice said about AI and about ditching those laptops and going back to connecting, and about getting critical thinking, and about getting our values right. And as much infrastructure that we want to build, if we don't build those values, not just for us, but like in that village, it takes a village, not because we need somebody to look after our children when we're not there. It takes a village because of the different values that you can pick, the different lessons that you can learn, and also that you can ask for help. So I just wanted to say this was amazing, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone who have spoken. My name is Antonia Bisi-Adebowale. Wearing a floral top. I've got blonde short hair. I'm black. White pants. Today, I just want to speak about, bring everything together and talk about policies. I think for infrastructures to work well, policies have to be in place. From being inclusive in the education sector, employment sector, physical infrastructures around us, policies have to be in place. And that has to do with communication between the government and the people. So we all need to take a part in influencing policies. I think we all need to start to engage more with the government. We shouldn't sit back. I know politics can be a bit challenging to be part of. Even if you're not a politician, you can still engage with the government. I think we need to speak up. We need to use different ways, like today. I really love this, having this conversation, and because all this can influence policies. If policies are solid, then the infrastructures can actually have longevity. There could be, how would I say, sustainability of infrastructures. So that's what I want to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Eric, I wanted to come to you for this question, and I know we have to wrap this up because I've been getting this signal, wrap it up, wrap it up, wrap it up. But I cannot go without posing this question to Eric, who is in the technology space. Where do you think institutions go wrong in terms of the technological advances that are available?
Well, ultimately, I like to think of technology in the construct of these governing institutions and this principle of stewardship, because much of the West likes to think of things in this quarterly or biannually context. How do we take advantage of this system in the construct of our current political party that's in power? And something that you see that's historically non-traditionally Western is this construct of like the seventh generation, as they've called it in like Native American cultures, which is how are you handling something and its potential impact to the people that aren't born yet. So when we look at technology, especially how much, natural resources it requires, I think we have to be very prudent about how we are stewarding the extraction of these resources that are powering so much of what we take for granted. All of us here have phones. We need to think about the resources that came to making that phone or the people that had to extract those resources. So when we look at government and the infrastructure that is technology, how are we really looking at how it impacts the people that aren't born yet, despite how much we are so short-sighted in the use and the profitability of these things?
So when we talk about infrastructure, again, a lot of people have mentioned the idea of people behind the infrastructure, right? And the quality of the people and the quality of their mindset. I think one thing that has a a tremendous impact on that is the media we consume. And as a filmmaker, as someone who creates media, I think we underestimate, and we're meant to underestimate, the impact of media, whether it's watching television, whether it's playing video games, many of the things that our children do, if we have them, or many of the things that we do. And there's an impact there. And I just wanted to say real quickly, the importance of creating media, I think people underestimate that. So when you're creating an institution, what is the media that supports that institution, right? George has a book, right? That is the media that supports his institution in a way. But what is the media that supports your institution? And how can you leverage that media to create the mindset necessary for your institution to survive, to thrive, and to do well? So what is that media that you're providing for people to consume? And a lot of people, again, overlook that. You think of advertising, you think of other things like that, but what is the media that you're actually creating? So I just wanted to bring that up as someone who makes films, that's something that we need to think about, because that shifts the mindset or helps support the mindset necessary to have a successful institution.
Thank you so much. It goes back to communication. Yeah, getting the message across and being intentional in what it is that we're trying to put forth to support the system, but also to make sure that the system endures and it's inclusive. We're going to have to close this segment, so I'm just going to, for lack of a better way, and being an educationist at heart, I'm just going to start with Alice. Alice, what are your final words as we close this segment?
Thank you for including me in the conversation today. And I hope that it prompts everybody to reflect on their own infrastructure and how they can improve it for themselves and for the people around them.
Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, again, thank you very, very much for listening and coming on a Saturday morning to listen to us. I think what I would want to part with is, from all the conversations we've had today, one thing that I'm taking away, which rings true, is that if we can find something we love, something we truly love, let's do it. And I think if we do, the infrastructure will be solid and we'll be able to really make true impact in our society. So find something you truly love, and I honestly believe you never work a day afterwards. Thanks.
I'll leave you with this thought. People say often, begin with the end in mind, and I think we often forget that when we think about infrastructure, when we think about what we're building, when we think about where we're going. We need to begin with the end in mind. What is that goal that we have? But not just what the tangible goal is, but what are people's experiences going to be at the end? What are they going to say about what you've built? How are they going to feel about what you've built? And in that, then we can sort of work our way backwards. Does this structure enable us to actually create that experience in the end for the person? Or are we simply building something just for ourselves, or just based on some idea that we have that's not really tethered to anything of real value to the people that we're intending to impact?
Thank you. Eric, your final words?
At the end of the day, infrastructure is a reflection of who we are. It shows what we value, what we are willing to maintain, and whether we have the discipline and integrity to carry something beyond ourselves. So I believe if we want stronger infrastructure, we have to build stronger systems, stronger stewardship, and stronger people. Because what lasts is never, what is just built, but it's what is protected. So thank you so much for the time. It's been truly a pleasure, as always, to be a part of Thinking Reimagined and these wonderful conversations at Pretoria Brewery.
Thank you very much. I'm going to leave with these final words. Infrastructure is what it anchors us individually and collectively. The longevity of the infrastructures that we create individually and collectively is dependent on us, how we execute it, the discipline that we have, the intent that we have when we put it together, and the purpose of it. And the only way that we can have the stewardship and the connections and the communication and all of the factors that we've expressed today is to be intentional in why we're doing it, the reason we're doing it, which is the why, what the outcome should be, and how it's going to sustain beyond our own personal existence. Thank you so much to everyone who has been here today. Really grateful. We apologize for the delays, but we're also grateful for those delays because you're helping us at Thinking Reimagined to improve our own infrastructure. So we're going to be accountable. Thank you, Alice, for that. Thank you so much.